And with that sound, this starts a new episode, a new season of Deer Talk Now. Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Schmidt. Been with deer and deer hunting over 28 years. This is the first episode of Deer Talk Now for this season. I know it looks different to a lot of you. I'm joined today by Chris Berens, our senior editor. Chris has been here for 12 years?
About 10, 9, 10.
10-ish?
Something like that.
So we're coming at you a little bit different. This is the new Deer Talk Now podcast. I know everybody's been asking for it. We've kind of dragged our feet on it, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson. If you haven't been around that long, is that Deer Talk Now started off as a podcast way back in 2011. So we were kind of forward thinking back then, but podcasts really weren't a thing back then. So we kind of went more towards the pre-recorded videos. But Deer Talk Now has always been about information, kind of what we've been all about here at Deer and Deer Hunting for all these years, is about solid information. We're not going to shy away from controversy, and that's what we're going to do here with the podcast. In this year and next year and moving on, we're going to address those topics that we kind of talk about every day here in the office. And we're going to allow all you viewers and listeners to join us for these conversations. Well, Chris and I aren't going to get too heated.
No, it will be fine. Totally fine.
But we're going to talk about some things that we might not agree on, and that's okay. But it's everything that everybody talks about at deer camp, archery range, gun shop, you name it. We're going to talk about that stuff. So, Chris, we're going to start today, the very first show. First of all, let me back into this a little bit more. We're pushing 500 episodes. I'm going to say pretty close.
That's awesome.
With Deer Talk Now. And that's everybody who's watched, everybody who's shared it on social. We have to thank everybody for that. It's made it highly successful. We're entering our 12th season with this show, which is, I think, is pretty phenomenal.
Oh, it's hard to believe. Yeah. I mean, you think about all the different topics, all the different people you've interviewed, all the different subjects.
So give the listeners your experience, because we were just talking about that off air, is when you first started.
So I first started, I was an intern, just a summer intern, and lots of different projects that really helped me get into the industry or the publications. But one of the big projects was, oh, hey, Chris, you're going to do these interviews with these guys. There was, at our old building, there was a little room, like a radio room. I interviewed, I think it was Mark Drury, yep, Mike Matley, Steve Bartilla, and a couple, I think there were 4 or 5 total. And we did like hour long, kind of just like we did now, just start with the interview questions and then just kind of let it go. And then I had to come up with a PowerPoint type presentation to go along with it. And
clicking on that, trying to make that PowerPoint.
Yeah, it was fun. Like, it was really cool, but I don't know if anything ever happened to them.
Did you guys have it was some kind of like styrofoam cushioning on the walls?
Yeah, it was just like, you think about, like, I remember, I'm aging myself, at WKRP in Cincinnati, the TV show, where it's got like the egg crate foam around everywhere.
Yes.
And a little desk with like lots of buttons and speakers and everything.
That was, what I think back on those times, it was innovative.
Yeah.
Because nobody was doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it didn't take off right away, is that, like I said, podcasts weren't a thing.
Oh, definitely not. Yeah, smartphones were in the future yet. There was nothing like that.
Maybe some people had them. We were still on our little flip phones if we had a cell phone.
Yeah, or your iPod with your music, but there was no Apple Music, Apple iPods, whatever.
Right.
Or podcasts. Yeah.
Yeah, we had some awesome guests. We're going to do it again, but we're going to keep it deer geeky, and it's going to be, like I said, this is hopefully when people tune in and listen, it's going to be like you're sitting at deer camp. And it's not us. We're going to be bringing on guests that, I mean, basically that we've dealt with for decades and have just enormous amounts of their brains are huge as far as all things deer and deer hunting. So I look forward to it. I know you do too. So we're going to start this one. So I'm going to give you a little biography of myself. That today's topic is public land hunting, the good, the bad, and the indifferent. And that's about as structured I'll keep it. I do have some talking points, but one thing that Chris and I know each other very well, obviously, but we grew up very similarly hunting-wise. Hunting public land almost exclusively for me. Now, I have not done that much lately, obviously. But for 20 years, public land for me, that was it. Northern Wisconsin, big national forests. And that's how I cut my teeth hunting. And that's how I learned a lot of my hunting skills. And I know, Chris, you have too. But why don't you give everybody just a little bit of an insight? We want to have that background before we dive into these topics, because I know you're still doing it. And tell everybody your background and the types of land that you've hunted mostly.
Sure. Like you said, I pretty much grew up the same way as you. Is like going up north, going to deer camp for rifle season, then maybe get up there a few times, small game hunting or fishing a little bit. But otherwise, it was up north, big woods, national forest, gun season. Lots of fun, learned a lot. And then as I got older, living in central Wisconsin, started bow hunting more and hunting smaller parcels of public land around agriculture type habitat, as well as continuing northern Wisconsin, big woods, public land. So I do a little bit of both, or actually a lot of both. And almost 90% of all my hunting is public land, like you said, national forest, state forest, private land that's open. I've been out west. I've taken 2 trips to Wyoming, 2 trips to North Dakota, just on your own, camping out. Lots of fun, tons of public land, great hunts, but just something different. So I've tried to keep a well-rounded perspective of what's available and just exploring and getting after it.
So let me feed that first question to you is, in your view, what is the state of the state, so to speak, when it comes to public land deer hunting in America?
I guess I only can speak to the three states that I've hunted, and overall, out east and some other areas where there really isn't that much to begin with. I'm sure it's tough, but we're fortunate around here, Wisconsin, and of course out west, to have a decent amount. And it can be tough. It can be bad hunting and dealing with a lot of garbage, but it really isn't as bad as a lot of people make it out to be. You can really find some good hunting and enjoyable times out on the many different kinds of public land that we do have.
So I know I've already chummed these waters, so I could tell that in your answer. But my answer to the question is public land hunting sucks. It does. But I say that to talk out of both sides of my mouth, and the fact that if you don't embrace the suck, you're not going to learn anything.
Yeah.
And that's how I know that I grew up. Basically, we were forced that way. We don't have land in our family. None of my relatives really had. I had a couple uncles that had small pieces, but mostly surrounded by public. But that's how we learn. We learned that you better make the best of a bad situation if you wanted to hunt and you wanted to have any experience, success.
Right.
And so my view on it is that way. And I've done a lot of seminars on this, especially at the Deer and Turkey Expos over the years, was for somebody who's brand new who would ask me, I'm hunting public land, what should my expectations be? And I always say your expectations is that you're a pool ball and you're behind the 8 ball. And if you don't embrace that, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. Because, and I don't even care where you go. I mean, if it's, we say a lot of, because we're here in Wisconsin, but I mean, Michigan and Pennsylvania and New York.
Oh, and down south too.
And down south and Georgia and Alabama and even Florida. Good luck. I mean, I don't mean to say that to get people depressed, but you have to embrace it. And the guys that are doing it, they already know that. They already know that. This isn't easy.
Yeah.
But if that was a new hunter and they were saying, hey, I want to try deer hunting, I'm going to go out on public land, what would you say?
I'd say similar to what you said, but just keep it in perspective. What you see on TV and stuff, keep that on TV. Don't expect that out here. And no matter what happens, you just got to keep a positive mind. Try to have some fun and learn some things. And if you see any deer and get any deer, damn good for you, and enjoy it.
If you get one, please send me an email.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's my big thing. We've talked about it before too. Is just perspective of what you're dealing with compared to what maybe you expect, and because what we're inundated with all the time, and what we all shoot for is one thing, but what's really available is different.
So that is the point you bring up there, which is the important one, is to keep it in perspective, because I think it's really easy for somebody to read a magazine or watch a TV show or look at YouTube videos, and they see Johnny Eberhart just putting and John's like in his 60s, putting big, huge bucks on the ground every year.
Yeah.
Dick Bernier, rest his soul, shooting huge bucks, tracking them down in the woods of Maine.
Mm-hmm.
The Benoits, the Hellbloods.
Hellblood.
Some of these guys that are just doing it time and time again.
Yeah.
And like, man, I must really suck. I can't even see a doe.
Yeah.
So it to keep it in perspective. But then the other thing is you have to be able to learn, and that's where I gained a lot of that's my base knowledge, is you have to be able to learn that, maybe this place that I'm going out to, this 80 acres of state land, maybe it's only good for a couple weeks in September. So now I got to be adaptable.
Right.
And I have to have more options.
Definitely.
And I know you do that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, again, we're fortunate we have a lot of options around here and in other parts of the state, but that's the biggest thing, is like you can't just sit in one spot all season and have your one stand. You can, if that's what you want, that's fine, but you can't expect.
How much do you see of that of other guys where you're competing?
A fair amount. Yeah, I see once you get into October, November, ladder stands are popping up, cut branches, and you see guys walking in and out just in their work clothes and stuff, which is fine. But they have that one spot, and that's all they go to, which, again, that's all you have time for. That's fine, but you can't also expect to have consistent success or get angry with it if that's all you're doing.
And that's how I learned. I learned is exactly, I always said, when I first started doing seminars, I'd say, yeah, you got to pay attention. And I'm going to get into some of this stuff, is like, we talk about a little bit of our scouting secrets, or they're not really secrets, but our techniques. But I was more of a people watcher than a deer watcher. What I mean by that was I always said, okay, there's this two guys. There are these two guys. And I'm thinking back when I used to gun hunt in the Chequamegon.
Yep.
They do the same thing every year. And it's a great piece of land that we were hunting. So we started hunting based off of their actions.
Yeah.
And that's when things really started turning for me. Now, this is back, 25 years ago or more, when, do you remember, probably, I don't know if you remember, but when I was growing up, that old adage, like, the farther you go in, the better it's going to be, that was actually at one time true. Mm-hmm. It still is to a certain extent today, but I think all these mapping apps and everything have changed.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, you can pick out spots easier. But you get up to big woods or big chunks, I think that still plays a lot, because the average hunter, even with studies and stuff, that 400 yards, 200 yards off the road, a quarter mile-ish is about the average.
And everybody says they go a quarter mile in, they're going like 80 yards.
Yeah, exactly.
They kind of went up over 2 humps.
Yeah.
They're back in maybe like you said, like 80 yards off the road.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, no, that's some good points there, in the fact, I know we're kind of jumping ahead talking about that, but studying the land and studying how other people hunt it. One thing I want to ask you, Chris, is how important in your approach is scouting? And kind of like let's just give a brief overview, and let's just say you're going to go out to a new 80-acre spot.
Okay.
A little piece of state land. What's your recipe? How do you approach it?
Yeah, at first, scouting has become even more important as I've gotten older. The last 10 years, like getting out there in the spring, like now as the snow is melting, all that. But anyway, so yeah, okay, this looks like a good piece. Now, with all the apps and stuff, I can look right at the topo map, right at the aerial photo, see what's around it as far as food, cover with pines, swamps, that kind of thing. just pick it apart as much as you can, and then when you get a chance, especially like now, March, April, get out there as the snow's melting or once it's really gone.
So what are you looking for? What do you look for when you get out there now in March? You looked at it, you see it, okay, here are my ecotones, here are how they're converging. And that's just a fancy word of different types of cover. Now what?
Just try to get out there and look for anything. And to me, that's, like you said, first is people traffic, human traffic. Okay, the parking spot or any other spots where anybody could park, tire tracks, trash. When you get in there, climber tracks on trees or cut branches, or everybody and their brother likes to leave out their little scent wicks and everything everywhere, that kind of stuff. It gives you a picture of how many people.
So you find this,
it.
Then what are you going to do?
Then you kind of take it into account compared to the sign that you found, buck sign and doe sign and bedding and where the food is and everything. You say, well, is this even worth it if there's this many people? Or maybe when is this getting hunted? Around here, it's most likely gun season, opening weekend, that kind of thing, or like November. But also look around, okay, is there a swamp? Is there water? Is it going to make it tough for, okay, all this sign of people I'm seeing? Are they going to be able to go all the way back to the far corner? That kind of thing. And then just weigh the options of the sign versus the deer sign, buck sign versus the human sign. Put it into your little calculator in your head and see what you think compared to your other spots too.
And that's the two key things that you said there. Other spots, plural.
Yeah.
And, analyzing how it's being used. What I did, and what I'm going to say used to do, because I'm going to be honest, I have not hunted public land outside of turkey hunting, which is a different story. But for deer hunting, haven't done it for a while. I mean, obviously in this job, I travel a lot. I get to go on places that have private land, and some have public land, but it's mostly private. But if I'm hunting public land, one thing that I made a mistake, and I see a lot of guys make a mistake, is they spend way too much time trying to look at that map.
Yeah.
And they'll give me a hunt stand snapshot.
Oh, sure.
And they'll say, where should I put my stand? I'm like, you don't think in those terms. First of all, analyze. When I say ecotones, you got to analyze. You're not going to be able to in my opinion, you're not going to be able to pinpoint it off a map. You might have some conifers leading to some hardwoods or swamps or whatever. Find those edges. Deer are creatures of edges.
Absolutely, yeah.
Go scout it.
Yeah.
Do you see trails? Do you see rubs? Do you see scrapes? Do you see bedding areas? Like you said, this time of year is perfect for it. You can do it other times of year. And I always call it a 3-year plan. I'm not going to learn that property until I hunt it for 3 years. Mm-hmm. Because for me, I always said I have to let the deer show me how to hunt them. And all these other things. You might have guys coming in grouse hunting.
Yep.
In September, October, it's like, man, I found a good spot, but it's not going to be any good.
Yeah. Or people just walking their dogs or going for horse rides. I've had that. Or you see the neighbors, maybe they like their ATVs and stuff. I've had that too, where all of a sudden, nice October day, the ATVs are up and down, that kind of thing makes a difference.
And another point there, and this is the nuance of hunting public land, is anybody who's watching this, that's not an obvious thing. Just because there is human traffic, just because there's this stuff, doesn't mean it's not going to be good. And I'm going to give an example. I wrote about it in my book. I used to hunt public land right here in Wapaka. Oh, I just gave it away, didn't I?
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter. I don't hunt it anymore. But there was a piece of public land that had a section of the Ice Age Trail, just a very heavily traveled trail in Wisconsin. Everybody's on it. And I had a little spot that I hunted. And I shot, it was one of the best bucks, or I should say one of the first good bucks I ever shot with a bow. This is going back. This is,
just a couple of years ago.
1997, I believe it was. Anyways, I knew where this buck was, and I could see the Ice Age Trail from my tree stand. Okay. And this buck is coming in. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to happen. All of a sudden I hear ching, ching, and I'm like, what? And here comes a mom and a dad and a little girl on a small bike. The streamers and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Going down the trail, and that buck just stood, and he watched them and watched them and watched. I'm watching the buck. I'm watching them. They left. He flicked his tail, and he came right in, and I shot him at like 15 steps. So the one, I'm going to jump ahead to one point I always make is like Chris says, put all that stuff into your computer but then have a short memory.
Yeah.
Because as long as there's sign there telling you that there's deer there, it's almost like a puzzle that you got to figure out when's the right time to hunt it, or maybe you just get lucky and you hunt it on the right time. And I knew you had mentioned that on some of the ways, especially when you get into a non-big woods situation, as to when you're going to hunt and how you're going to hunt it.
Definitely, yeah. And around here, if there's a lot of other traffic, I mean, those deer get used to it. Those older bucks too, and older does. Just like you said, I've seen deer do the same thing. All kinds of traffic, people making noise, but they know, okay, well, it's almost dark. Not many other people in the woods. Then they'll move. Middle of the day, same kind of thing. So it, like you said, it's not the end of the world as long as there's deer sign there. It's just the timing. Yeah.
And that's one thing that John has written about a lot. Now, he takes it to a level that's... He's taken it to a level that if you don't know John Eberhardt, you should. But if you don't, look up his books, look up his YouTube page, look up his
articles
his
in
his
deer,
articles in our magazine.
Stuff, yeah.
He's taken it to, and that's a guy that I would like people to learn information from on how to hunt.
Mm-hmm.
There's other guys how to do it, but that's what I would call staging area behavior, and people say, well, how do I pinpoint a staging area? Well, that's what I say. Always go back to learning those ecotones.
Yeah.
Because if you know where those edges are, especially if you know a point A and a point B, normally you don't have food sources.
Right. So you're looking for bedding is huge. Yeah.
So you're looking for travel corridors.
Yeah.
And I know that you do hunt some areas that, and I've done it too, where you might be hunting a public land travel corridor that's going to private land food.
Yeah.
And those
absolutely.
Staging areas are probably right on the edges.
Right. Yeah, I've done that a lot with, the private agriculture, but there's a swamp on public or something, or it could be they cross a skinny piece of public from private to private. It can be the same thing.
So what's the most frustrating thing for you when you put in all this work? And I know what you're going to say, but...
Yeah, just getting busted by somebody else or something else out of my control. You bust your ass to scout, hunt, get out there, but it's public land. If somebody wants to take their dog for a walk in the middle of the day or just before dark on November 3rd or something, it is what it is.
Well, how does that not wear you down?
Oh, it does. Yeah, it totally does. But you just gotta, like you said, you gotta embrace it, and hopefully you got enough scouting, you got other spots. Be like, well, I'll try another spot the next time, or I'll come right back tomorrow because the weather's going to be crappy and that person's not going to be coming out in a snowstorm or something, hopefully. So
you got to have that kind of attitude because Chris still has that gleam in the eye. It's been beaten out of me years ago, like I said. But, it's a great approach because even today, I'm hunting small private parcels.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you kind of get, I don't want to say lazy, but you get comfortable where it's like, I'm just going to go hunt. Even if you got some 3-4 stands on a small piece, if you have that flexibility.
Yeah.
You know who does it really well? Steve Bartilla. Steve, now I know Steve doesn't do it as much anymore, but what he would do, he took it to another level as well. If you read his early books, he would have many different options. He would be hunting small private parcels, some small public parcels, but he would hone in on those spots where he knew a mature buck was.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd always say, well, I'll hunt it if I know there's a buck there that I want to hunt.
Yeah.
And that is, it kind of keeps going back to circle the fact that having that option and then figuring out maybe when at the right time of the season it's going to work.
Right.
And like I said, a lot of it is going to revolve around luck too.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, especially during the rut or something like that, anything could happen. Like the old saying, I'd rather be lucky than good any day, especially on opening day gun season. But if you did your scouting or you've seen deer there, they're there for a reason, and they'll be back. It may not be every day, like maybe on a nice piece of private or something. They're not in a perfect pattern, but they'll be back, and you just gotta stick it out.
Okay, another hypothetical. Somebody comes up to you and says, Chris, where is, just based off of what you know, not necessarily where you've hunted, where's the best public land hunting in America for whitetails?
Oh, I'd say anywhere in a western state, Dakotas, Nebraska, and West, simply because the amount of public land it's unbelievable. You can't even fathom compared. And even for Wisconsin, you go out there and it's just like everywhere. And then the amount of people, there's a way less competition. Just residents and recreational users and hunters. When I was looking at going out west and to Wyoming and North Dakota, you go online, you look at all the forums and try to glean a little bit here and there, which you got to take it with a grain of salt. And everybody's like, oh, don't go there. That unit sucks. There's so much pressure. And first, they're probably talking about gun season, and I'm looking at bow hunting because right away, less people. But then you get out there, and then or talk to the warden or the local biologist, and they're like, and then you get out there and you realize it's like a busy day on that public land is still like nothing compared to a busy day on anything west of the or east of the Mississippi public land.
I find that very fascinating because where we go down in Illinois now, we hunt private land, but there's some big chunks of public land down there. And the locals, oh man, it's just hammered.
Yeah,
Steve does that really well. He's got oh, it's just hammered. And you drive by and there's like one truck.
Right.
And that's during gun season.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, man, if I lived here, I'd be wearing that place out.
Exactly.
I wouldn't have any tags left. You know that. I'd be tagged out. Yeah. But I agree with you in the fact that as far as just the sheer opportunity and the less pressure is west is where it's at. Now, that's if you can travel.
Right.
Is that to say you can't find it at home? No, but you look at, and we keep pounding the same states, but Wisconsin, Michigan, New York, Indiana doesn't have that much public land. Pennsylvania,
yeah.
Man, you show me somebody who can kill a deer on public land in Pennsylvania or New York or Michigan or Wisconsin.
Or like Alabama you were talking about the other day.
These southern states.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Like long seasons, tons of tags.
And it's funny because, deer day.
Yeah.
You can shoot a deer day. Well, yeah. You know what's interesting about that is like even on the private land, now I've talked to thousands of hunters, but even on the private land, those places like in Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia with the really liberal bag limits, I think Tess Jolly, if Tess is listening, hi Tess, she's a tremendous hunter, absolutely tremendous hunter. But I think she told me 1 year, now this is going back many years ago, I think she said she shot 17 deer 1 year.
Wow.
But that was, their season is long.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like us. I mean, I averaged double digits for 20 years, but it was like I was hopscotching all over the place.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress. Digress there is the fact that I think what I find fascinating, not just from the public land hunting aspect, but just from the deer hunting aspect in general, is that no matter where you go, there are pockets where I'm glad I live in the hunt where I live, because it's like I said, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan,
New York,
Oofta.
Yeah, or those East Coast states too. Like
you're talking like Pennsylvania, Michigan, like 1 million hunters.
Yeah,
like 700,000, 750,000, 740,000 bow hunters in Michigan. Oof. Yeah, I'm, and then like I'm now gonna get in my truck and drive like you do, drive west of Wyoming and camp, and maybe see one other guy.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not the same type of habitat. So before we leave that part of the topic, tell the viewers. Oh yeah, it must be nice. You get to hunt these other states.
Oh yeah, it's nice, but I did it for. I did the research, and all it cost me was gas and the tags, which in some of those states the tags aren't that expensive compared to others, and they're over the counter, and camp out in the park or sleep in your truck or in the Walmart parking lot.
So you did it for approximately how much?
So Wyoming and North Dakota, depending on the tag, it was like $800 or less.
That's not bad.
More like, or if with two guys to North Dakota, $500 really for your tag and your gas, and you bring cheap food and you camp out. So it's how long you want to drive. The tough part is the time is the most valuable thing. Like to go just for like 3 days, that would be tough. But if you can give me a whole week, like Saturday to a Sunday. That's the biggest thing, I think. And a lot of people, that's tough. Some people get 2 weeks of vacation a year, maybe. You got other things, family and work and all this stuff. So
No, I think that's an important point that you make, in that a lot of people might not realize that it is very affordable.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, gas now makes it tough, but you get 2 or 3 guys, or take your car. You don't have to have a big truck.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just going off regular gravel roads and stuff.
And it's not going to be overnight success. I mean, it's not.
It takes time, yeah. Last 2 years I went to North Dakota. I didn't get anything, but I learned a lot. Saw a lot of good country, lots of good deer.
3-year plan, that's what I said.
Yeah.
And that's on home stuff. So.
Yeah. So if you go back, it's like every year I learn a little bit more, and maybe, have some luck.
See, you got to hang around this guy. He's very optimistic. Hang around with me.
I got to offset you a little bit.
Yeah, you're going to hang around me. You're just going to say, I'm not even going out. Looks like it's cloudy out there. I don't think I want to hunt. Nah, I don't think those deer are going to move.
Yeah, no, there's
an 8-mile-an-hour wind.
Yeah,
Wind's
it's
wrong.
a full moon, like nothing moves up.
Yeah, they don't move in a full moon.
Yeah.
Ever. Yeah. Maybe at night. So another point with that, I always say to try to maintain optimism. Another thing that I always say is don't overthink it.
Yeah.
And
There's
I said that
deer.
before.
Yeah.
Don't overthink that. Like, God, I see how many. Remember we used to joke about this back in the office? There'd be that one guy, and you know who I'm talking about. It's like they put the map, and they're like, oh man, this looks like a natural runway here. It's like you've never been on the land before.
Yeah.
You've never even set foot on it. Oh man, they're gonna come through here. There's our bedding area.
Oh, I guarantee you. Yeah.
I guarantee you.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shoot a 140.
Oh, or nothing. 140 or nothing.
There we go. So that gives us to our next point, is we talk about expectations.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that gets me prickly, is that you see, and I don't mean to like throw water on, especially like new guys, but like, oh man, I'm not shooting anything unless it's 140. It's like, dude, you're going to be sitting there. If a branch antler buck comes by and you pass it up,
Yeah.
more power to you. That's
If
your
you
prerogative.
want, if that's your goal, that's fine. But good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Stop watching certain YouTube channels
Yeah. It's
because they're pumping too much smoke up.
yeah.
Up here.
And again, like the perspective, you can't compare it to the the TV stuff, some of the outfitted stuff, because it is different. It's like, go out there, learn, have fun.
Okay, what's a
if you see
criticism
something.
you see about what's being portrayed right now about public land hunting on? I'm just gonna say YouTube.
No, that it's quick, easy, that you can just go out there and find it. Which on one hand, it's good. We've talked about this. It's good. It's getting people pumped up. Like, there's opportunities, and then people stand up for public land issues a little more, and shows that, okay, I could do this. But the caveat always is, the guys that are having success, and good for them, they're doing a great job. All the different shows and stuff, it's like they're out there every day, not just on Saturday, Sunday. They're out there every day, and they're state hopping, and they've got some really good public land. Iowa, Kansas public land is not like Wisconsin or Michigan public land overall.
Georgia, Alabama,
Even though I've never
Arkansas,
been to Iowa
Mississippi,
and stuff, it's like
Louisiana.
it's a different world, yeah. So it's, again, it's perspective. Like, it's not easy, and it takes time.
What is a pet peeve or pet peeves, if you have any? I don't think you do, but on state regulations, just in general, or state or federal management of our public lands?
That's a big question. Fortunately, we don't have it in Wisconsin. This is a hot button issue for some people, but I am glad that we don't have antler point restrictions. Some states are doing it, and some guys say, well, that's good. It's good for you, but
I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with it.
You know
It's
that.
like, yeah, don't ever tell me if I can't shoot a spike.
Yeah.
I paid for that tag. It's part of the herd. I'm having fun.
But they're saying, oh, well, we're trying to create we're trying to create special hunting opportunities.
Yeah, it's like, but you're also gonna make people not have as much fun or lose hunters, I think, because of it.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree with you. And to me, I could go on that topic and I could get really animated.
Oh yeah, we could.
It's the same thing with fishing, which just grinds me because I grew up fishing up north, and we're meat fishermen, and I don't care if it's a muskie or a northern pike or whatever. And when they started going trophy, 50-inch size limit on muskies, I'm like,
yeah,
I want to catch a 32-incher and fillet it.
Sure.
I know you're gasping in horror right now. Oh my God.
Right.
He's going to kill a muskie. And it's the same thing with deer hunting.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, go ahead and do it on your private lands.
Exactly.
I'll go toe to toe with anybody who wants to argue with me on this. I don't think it brings more hunters into it. It might make. I actually haven't seen. Have you seen? I have not seen one good example where that type of thing has benefited any public land situation.
Yeah. I agree.
Now there are some armories I know that have done special hunts like that.
Sure.
They do quote unquote trophy hunts.
Mm-hmm.
Money makers for those places.
Yeah.
In some places.
Similar to like the Western states and some of their draw tags. It's like that has a benefit to it, but it's a controlled situation. It's not a be all end all cure all to make all public land some like glorious trophy hunting place. I don't know. I'm rambling. Maybe that doesn't make sense, but I'm with you. It's like it's Ted Nugent, your good buddy, said it the best. He's like in his video, and that sticks with me. He's like, you're telling me, okay, I have maybe 2 days I can hunt during gun season because I got to work. I got a new job. I got kids. I got whatever. And you're going to tell me if I see a spike after I bought my tag, bought my bullets, bought my boots, drove up here, did all this stuff. If I see a spike and that's all I see, that I can't shoot it? It's like, no way.
I agree with that across all properties.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think states should be coming down with those for that reason. Because I was that guy.
Exactly. Me too.
I was that guy that I got to take off maybe Monday.
Yeah.
And I had 3-day weekend.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, I can't. Okay, I understand back then we couldn't kill does. It was the party permit system. Like,
sure.
You might have got one doe tag for 6 guys.
Yeah.
And they were still rebuilding the herds then. But it's like, well, wait, I can't shoot a buck? Well, no, why?
Well,
and some people don't understand it. Some people, like people who are watching this,
mm-hmm.
most of them, I'm going to say 99% of them, are into this. That's their thing. They live the deer hunting lifestyle.
Oh, yeah.
But I have other people that are like, no, I just want to go. If I see something, I want to shoot it, and I want to like bring some meat home.
Exactly.
So I don't. That's a topic for a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, we could go on that forever. Yeah.
From my standpoint, James Kroll actually said this, and I vehemently opposed it when he said it, but it actually had some truth to it. Is he said this going back, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. He said public lands in America, he said, is the last bastion of communism. And basically what he meant by that is, and
communism, what?
Basically, he said, like, if you look at public land hunting, public lands is like public bathrooms, is like public beaches.
Mm-hmm.
You go into a public bathroom, it's nasty, disgusting. There's no toilet paper left. You go to public lands, it's the same kind of thing. There's trash all over the place. People don't take care of it. But from when I take that a step further, it's kind of treated the same way for management. Not all across the board, but in a lot of areas. They're not managing it for deer.
No.
Oh, well, we have to manage it for carnival blue butterflies and, this other habitat. And it's like, well, not just you hunters,
Right.
And it's like, but then you go into some of these places. Now, like I said, you have different levels. You got state and national.
Mm-hmm.
You go into national forest, it's a dead sea. I don't care if there's 3,000 acres. It's got about enough habitat to hold one deer per square mile.
Yeah.
Because there's no understory. It's either been overbrowsed forever, or there just isn't any, or they're not managing it for that.
Right. The whole anti-logging thing in the last 20 years has really, really hurt the national forest. Absolutely.
And if you look at those forests, that's what they're there for.
Right.
It's
a renewable resource. Yeah.
we're never going to solve it. I can sit here and complain about it, but that is my biggest beef. Because if you go back to, say, the 40s and the 50s, when we started having these, well, I don't want to say prolific then, but they were starting to gain, you had some just gorgeous aspen regrowth. And that kind of came out at the cusp of the end of the timber boom. And you had some just fabulous habitat. Now, I do see in some of these other states, as Kansas and Missouri and Illinois and some of these places, especially where they actually are planting.
Oh, yeah.
There's actually food plots, and there's farm crops that they're planting on public lands.
Yeah, and they prescribe burns and stuff too. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you see that a lot in the Southeast, and you even see that down in, well, there's not too much public land in Texas, but you see some of that type of management in these other states.
Yeah.
That's my biggest beef, is that, what we know from a deer population standpoint, another couple other topics we could go off on, because people, we put this on Facebook, I think, was it last week before? Somebody asked the question, why are the northern deer herds on the decline? And people want to have that one simple thing, or wolves or bears or this or that and the other thing. It's overwinter habitat. Now that is as you know, that's a subject that's super complicated.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's 3 or 4 prongs, but that's the mother lode of it. Yeah, is the winter habitat, the food, the young growth, all that.
And just the succession of the forests. Yeah. You go to the UP, good luck. I mean, it's been so fragmented up there. That's something that you really need to sit down and study. And we have it on our website. We have tons of articles by John Ozoga about that topic.
Yep. Healthy habitat.
Yeah. Have healthy habitat, you'll have more deer.
Yep.
But I don't see, there's not a quick fix, because it's like going to a school board meeting or something. It's
I know.
You got so many different stakeholders in there.
Yeah.
And people talk in circles.
Oh, and the squeaky wheel gets to grease all these antis or whatever. They have their perspective, and they're making the most noise. And so in a lot of cases, the National Forest rangers and foresters, I mean, their hands are tied because of court cases and lawsuits and stuff too. And I went to school with a lot of guys that are in forestry. They're hunters, they're outdoorsmen and women, and they know as well that even without the wildlife side of it, a changing forest, or what would you say, like a successional forest, different age cuts, is a healthy forest just for the trees themselves and that resource, not to mention the wildlife aspect of it. And people are so blind to that, like we've seen in the last 20 years, like it started Oregon and then Wisconsin and all this, and oh, no logging. Logging's bad. Well, now you're seeing forest fires and all this crazy stuff. That's
why you see the bad forest fires out in California.
Yeah.
Those forests are just not managed.
Right.
You got a lot of fuel on the ground, and that happens in a lot of places. Not just there, but a lot of places like that. And you see it, like you see it in some of these other states.
Yeah. Like you said, that's a whole nother tangent. We could talk all day on that too.
I think we could. We can try anyways. I'm trying to think of some other side topics, and I might be running out here. But what would you say, broad view, what is your prediction for the future for deer hunting on public lands?
That's a tough one. There's more pressure, I've noticed, in the last few years with the phone apps make it easier for people, which is good and bad, because I take advantage of them too, and it makes it easier for me. But it also lets other people get out there in spots that you didn't used to see people. So,
what about some of the regulations that we see coming down? You can't use trail cameras. You can't do this. You can't do that.
Yeah, there's all that, like anti-trapping on public land out west. You've seen some of that.
If you don't know, Chris manages our Trapper magazine. And you see a lot more with some of these issues bubbling over there.
Yeah, definitely. Or like the issue, I think it's in Wyoming, with the checkerboard public land about corner crossing.
Explain that again.
So parts of Wyoming are like the southern half of Wyoming. There's millions of acres of public land that, I guess in the long short story, when they put the railroads through, like the railroads bought chunks here and there, and then every other spot, something the state kept or something like that. So there's literally sections of land checkerboard forever. Huge chunks of it. Most of it is simply not accessible because it's surrounded by private, and also the law is you can't corner cross. Even though it's touching like that, it's like the airspace. So anyway, long story.
Explain that one situation, because I found this fascinating. So it was a couple weeks ago. Wasn't it a court case?
Yeah, there's a court case right now from this last hunting season. I think it's in Wyoming, in that very area. A group of elk hunters, I think from Pennsylvania, they brought one of those sectional step ladders and put it up on public and put it over the corner and down to the next public, and they climbed over. They never touched the fence. They never touched the private. Well, now it's coming out that possibly that these landowners or their hired hands were harassing or watching these hunters because maybe they've had problems in the past. I don't know, or they're sticklers about it. While they took them to court over it, saying that technically that airspace straight up from the boundary is their
how
property.
Can airspace be private property?
Well, I don't get it, because it's like every airplane or helicopter that flies over, oh, you're trespassing. Literally. It's like, so they can then advertise what, if they're an outfitter or something or whatever they have. And I've seen it even in Wisconsin too, with you're supposed to have access to a chunk of land through an easement or something, but the neighboring landowners don't publicize it, or they take down signs, or they get in your face, because it basically gives them private access to all this public land. Yeah. So it's in court right now. It's been in court for several months. The hunters are pleading not guilty, and the landowners are trying to take the screws to them. And now it just came out that the landowners are refiling a civil case also against these hunters. So I've been following a little bit, and it could really set a precedent for the future, because it's been such a gray area, and now it's become such a big case. It's like, well, it could be good, it could be bad, but I don't know.
That's just crazy. I've never, ever heard of anything like that, and I can't believe that they were prosecuted.
Oh, I know. And that you would think there's so much land out there. Yeah, the landowners, ranchers, and oil and all that, they have power too, but there's so much public land out there that also holds such a high value for recreation for a state. Like in deer, you guys came up with that chart last week of the economic impact
of
incredible. Hunting.
Yeah, we'll flash that on the screen again.
Yeah, and it's an interesting case. I don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully it sets a precedent to help open up this land and allow things like corner crossing, or like in Wisconsin too, it's been crossing railroad tracks to get to public land.
We've had that problem for quite a long time.
Yeah, like sometimes, well, just do it.
They say that's private land, actually.
Yeah.
Railroad right away. We used to rabbit hunt on railroad tracks all the time.
Yeah, and it could close off or open up a ton of otherwise inaccessible land. So that's a big issue, definitely. I
see a little bit of it. I saw it especially when I would turkey hunt, and that was mostly smaller public properties. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a new problem, but I think it's one that we should emphasize, is that it doesn't matter if you're hunting private land or public land, that you need to be human and civil.
Yeah. And
just because there's a piece that's public and that you have access to it, don't be a jerk about it if there's a neighbor that's a private landowner.
It goes both ways. Yeah.
It goes both ways.
Yeah.
I see those conflicts. We haven't saw the bad one here in Wisconsin with the murders here. It was 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
In the deer woods.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the biggest thing is from the actual participation in hunting, that adhere to the ethics, adhere to respect of not only private land property lines, but also not littering, like you said, and that type of thing, but also getting involved on whatever level that you can, in the fact that if there's somebody that's coming, we're all in this together. I know that's a trite phrase probably by now, but I see, so I've written probably 3 or 4 letters in the last month on things that I will never do. Mountain lion hunting or bear hunting or other things where they're trying to get it shut down on public lands. The one I just irked me was the whole trail camera thing.
Yep.
Banning trail camera usage during hunting season. It doesn't make sense. That is an overstepping of.
Absolutely.
I think it's just, I've used this phrase before, but it's like my dad said at church, if you gave the ushers guns, they'd shoot somebody. It's like if you give people some kind of power, they're trying to make it themselves much more important than it needs to be.
Definitely.
But for public land management, we need to insist that it's being managed for wildlife. You know, it doesn't have to be single species,
right?
But if you're managing it for wildlife, you're going to be managing it for ruffed grouse and pheasants and deer and rabbits and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And with one goes the other, and you're going to have much better opportunity. And just enjoy everything. I think we've run through it. We've almost hit an hour.
That's pretty good.
On our first effort here, I thought we'd be kind of hard pressed to do that.
Oh no, we went through all these topics. We could go off on many tangents.
In the side topics, we are going to go off.
Yeah,
because I've already got some written down here.
Oh,
are going to be very similar. The wolf hunting.
Mm-hmm.
There's all sorts of things that we're other routes that we can go down. But I think it was a good one, Chris.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great. It's great to be here.
It's
folks.
great to be here.
Great to be here in podcast land.
Just tickled to be here. Everybody, if you're not familiar with deer and deer hunting, please go to deeranddeerhunting.com. Check everything out there. And also, Pursuit Channel, Saturday Night Deer Camp. We have the 2-hour block of programming. New shows start third quarter, but they're running all the time. Check out the Pursuit app. Check out the YouTube page. You're probably watching it there. DDH Online. YouTube.com/DDH Online. For Chris Berens, I'm Dan Schmidt. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on Deer Talk Now.